All right, we're going to reconvene our meeting this morning with Jen Holliday, the Director of Public Policy and Communications at the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Welcome, Ms. Holliday.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be back. I haven't been back here for a couple of years. So for the record, yes, I'm Jen Holliday. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Communications for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. I've been working there at CSWD for 31 years, which is really hard for me to believe. I'm also the a co-founding member and chair of the Vermont Product Stewardship Council. And that's a group that was formed in 2008. We're made up of most of the SWMEs in the state, the solid waste management entities, which CSWD is one of. And we work on extended producer responsibility initiatives. So we worked on the paint and the batteries and the mercury containing lamp programs. I'm also a board member and former president of the Product Stewardship Institute, which is a national organization that works on extended producer responsibility. That's in my wheelhouse. So what I thought would be useful today is just give an overview of CSWD, what we do kind of in the context of Vermont. And then I know that you want to talk somewhat about the bottle bill. Is that correct? Maybe touch on some of that.
Yes, you have to talk about that later, but.
Okay, great. Thank you. So CSWD was formed back in the late 1980s. I'm not going to go into the history of why we were formed or other SWMEs were formed, but essentially what you should know is that SWMEs are all, there's no two that are alike. There was no construct or framework of how to form solid waste planning entities to oversee solid waste for their jurisdiction. So some towns are doing it on their own. Some solid waste districts have municipal authority, and then there's alliances that don't have municipal authority. Some have facilities, others don't. Funding is all different. It's a real mishmash. I just want you to know what I say today is really, CSWD centric. And it's probably not the same in your region. So we were formed back in the late 80s, and we represent all of Chittenden County. So we're the largest SWME in terms of population. And we have a board of directors or board of commissioners that oversee or manage our activity. And that consists of a representative from every member town in Chittenden County. So that board of directors created our mission many years ago. And the mission is to reduce the waste that's generated in Chittenden County and then manage the rest of the waste in an environmentally sound, efficient, effective, and economical manner. So that's our goals with all the work that we do. And how we achieve that work is we have programs and services that we provide to the public. So I'll just touch on our facilities that we have in Chittenden County, and then some of our services. So the first facilities I'll talk about is our drop-off centers. We have 6 drop-off centers. Those collect trash, recyclables, food scraps, clean wood waste, yard waste, scrap metal, things of that nature from residents and small businesses that self-haul to our drop-off centers. In addition, we have materials at some of these sites called special recycling. And those are things like used motor oil, fluorescent lamps, electronic waste, textiles, anything that we can potentially collect and market and keep out of the waste stream. And what's great about our drop-off centers is that they're there for those that are self-hauling and don't have a subscription service for a hauler to come and collect trash curbside. But then we get a lot of participation from residents that do have those services, but they're just using our facilities for those special recycling services. So that's really great. The next facility I'll talk about, our next program, is our household hazardous waste collection program. That is consists of both a permanent collection program that's open year round, that we take in hazardous waste from small businesses as well as households. And then we have a mobile collection program, which consists of a vehicle that we deploy in the warmer months, and we serve our community towns with these one-day collection events. So we go way above and beyond what the SWIP requires us to do in terms of hazardous waste collection. But our Board of Commissioners and our members really appreciate having that kind of access. Another sub-program within that program that we're really proud about is a program called Local Color Paint. And that was developed over 20 years ago, where we take in the latex paint that's collected in this program. We blend it, filter it, put a preservative in it, and repackage it. And then we sell it to the retailers that are in the used materials businesses locally. So Resource and Habitat for Humanity are some of those retailers that sell our local color paint. So that keeps about 4 or 5 thousand gallons out of the waste stream every year and into our communities where there's a really affordable, high quality paint available for them to use. So we're really happy about that program. The next facility I'll talk about is our organics diversion facility. And that is home to Green Mountain Compost. If you've ever heard of Green Mountain Compost, it's located in Williston. We process we're the largest composter in terms of food scrap processing in the state. So last year we processed about 4,000 tons of food scraps that haulers brought to us, and we collected at our drop-off centers and brought to that facility as well. And we also collected and processed about 4,000 tons of leaf and yard waste. And we mixed that all together and made a beautiful soil amendment compost that is, last year we sold close to 12,000 cubic yards to local nurseries and garden supply stores and landscapers. I think it's important to point out to this committee, it might be of interest to you. Last January, we stopped accepting compostable foodware and other compostable products other than the liners that people use for lining their collection containers, those green bags. And that was a really hard decision. It took us quite a long time to get to it. We actually gave a year's notice to our users of our facilities to let them know. But we did it because we were receiving so much contamination in the loads of non-compostable material. And we were very concerned about the long-term viability of this program and the sales of compost, and concerned about microplastics getting into the compost. So unfortunately, we're no longer accepting compostable foodware.
Representative Logan has a question.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the reason that decision was made was, for example, like somebody might leave a plastic fork in a.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, yeah, I have a question on this along these lines, because not all of those compostable bags are equal.
Right.
And some of them either don't compost or they're plastic. I mean, can you speak to that? And also the utensil, because I know that's the same for them. I thought that was also part of the discussion.
Yes. So in order for, there's a standard that industry needs to make. It's BPI certification. BPI certification is the gold standard for compostability of a product.
What's that stand for?
Bioplastic Institute. I think that's it, but I'm not positive. I haven't looked at it for a while. So yeah, this is a whole nother discussion, but a lot of the a lot of the compostable products don't meet those standards. So that's one problem. And then you have consumer confusion overall with, oh, here's a thing. Oh, I see cups in there. I'm going to put my cup in there, right? And it's not a compostable cup. So, and when we receive it, we can't look. There's actually a stamp that says BPI certified. We can't look at every product to see it. The liners, there's that same problem. There's no restriction on how a manufacturer makes these bags and markets them. And so as a consumer, if you're online looking for a compostable bag liner, there's all kinds of language that's used to make you think that it's truly compostable. You don't know that it should be BPI certified, et cetera. So we end up absolutely getting bags in our facility that are not compostable and that we have to screen out. But it's a lot less contamination than what we were seeing before we stopped taking the foodware. The state of Washington has a law in place, and maybe just the city of Seattle, that we've thought about proposing to the legislature, which prohibits the sale of green bags of this nature without them being compostable, because consumers see the green bag and they think it's compostable. And that seems to have worked really well in Seattle.
And the ones that are BPI certified are compostable, and they're not introducing plastics into the waste and
Right.
compost stream.
Yes.
Yeah, Representative Logan.
Thank you. So in other words, in order for, takeout restaurants to be able to use compostable containers, we would generally just have to switch universally over to compostable containers in our geography for Chittenden, and I'm from Burlington, Chittenden Solid Waste District, for example, to be able to take those products.
Yeah, so just to be clear, we won't take any products except for the liners, because we were running into so much contamination issues. And this is why we gave a year's notice, because some of the restaurants had changed over to compostable products at our recommendation to convert more material. Single-use takeout container that's non-compostable, compostable. And we just our decision that we can't do this at this facility. It's too much of a problem for us.
So we would just have to ban non-compostable.
What we need to do as a society is get out of single-use.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where EPR for packaging comes in, right? And recovering of these really hard to manage materials. And I will say the manufacturers are all moving towards compostable products because they're seeing this as sort of the answer, but the infrastructure isn't there for it. I would love for it to be there, but it's not. So,
Representative Morris, did you have a question?
I did, and I apologize, Madam Chair. It's back on the hazardous material. You moved on to this new topic before I had a chance. But yeah, so you operate 6 sites in your area in Chittenden County, and your hazardous waste sites are by appointment, or you transition to a full-time location? Yeah.
So we have 6 drop-off centers that they collect some hazardous waste, but the majority of the hazardous waste is collected at our permanent environmental depot located in South Burlington. And that we do by appointment.
Okay.
Yes.
And is the producer responsibility covering the cost on that, or?
So the producer responsibility is covering the cost for disposal only on
Paints, yeah.
Batteries, fluorescent lamps, and mercury thermostats. That's close to about, paint is about 50% of what we manage. So about 60% of the materials covered in terms of disposal on hazardous waste. But we have been working for 6 years, the Vermont Product Stewardship Council, on EPR for household hazardous waste to address the rest of it. And in those proposals, we've asked to be compensated for all costs, not just the disposal, because if you're looking at the cost of, say, a one-day collection event, those tens of thousands of dollars, that's really setup fees and other overhead costs, not disposal. Disposal is just a fraction. Yeah.
And that's a bill we passed last.
Yes. Yes.
We'll be taking it up this session.
That's great. Okay. The
Sorry.
last.
I'm just sorry about jumping back.
No, that's fine. The last facility I wanted to talk about, or that we have to talk about, is our materials recycling facility. It's interchangeable with materials recovery facility, where all the blue bin recyclables go for processing. And CSWD's facility is a regional facility. We serve more than just Chittenden County. We process about 50% of the state's recyclables, over 50%. Of the state's blue bin recyclables at the Williston MRF. That facility, the other recycling or MRF is located in Rutland, and that's owned by Casella. And their tonnage last year was about 37,000 tons. Ours was 47,000 tons. This facility has been in operation for 30 years. It's old and worn out. We're really proud of the work that we've been able to do with this, but it's way beyond its capacity that it was designed for 25,000 tons. All the containers are hand sorted by people instead of sorted by modern technology that modern MRFs use, and it's just ready to be replaced. So our board made the decision last year that it was in the best interest of our communities to continue to own a publicly owned materials recovery recycling facility, and to build it new, because we don't have enough room where we're located to do anything. So we own a piece of land. We had to go out to the voters to ask them to allow us to borrow $22 million in Chittenden County for a $26 million overall project. And we received an overwhelming support from the voters. We had 83% of the voters vote in favor of that project. So we're really excited to move forward with this new facility with modern technology that will be able to sort recyclables much better, more efficiently, and we will have much cleaner bales and higher quality products to market. We anticipate that will be opening in the summer of 2025. So I want to just...
Where will that be located?
It's going to be located in Burlington, Williston, just a couple of miles away from our current MRF. Yeah, it's actually on Redmond Road where ODF or Green Mountain Compost is. So we're going to kind of have like a campus of waste facilities there. I wanted to not leave talking about the MRF before just touching on glass, because that has been a topic of conversation and interest in this committee, and does definitely pertain to the bottle bill. So we take the glass that's recycled in the blue bins, and that is crushed and cleaned up by equipment and made into a product called processed glass aggregate. And processed glass aggregate, if it passes the A&R specifications, can be used for certain construction type projects. So a couple of years ago, the state determined that CSWD was in violation of how we had managed some of our processed glass aggregate in the past. And we worked through that to resolve that issue with them. We now are testing our processed glass aggregate quarterly. And we've found a local outlet for it, Whitcomb Quarry, where it's being mixed with other sand material and used in construction projects. So we consider this, and environmentally and fiscally better than transporting it out of state, where it would essentially be used for the same type of projects. Some of it still does get transported out of state. We can't clean up all of it. It needs to be cleaned up. Then we're also working on another really exciting project with UVM, the Agency of Transportation and Agency of Natural Resources. And that is to potentially use this sand product in replacement of what's called sand borough in the Agency of Transportation's projects. And sand borough, from what I understand, is a natural resource found in Vermont that's being pretty quickly depleted. And the agency has to look outside of the state to bring it in for use in projects. And I'm not a technical resource on sand borough. UVM and AOT are, but we're AOT is very certain that they could use this material for their projects. So that's another market that we're considering.
Representative Clifford and then Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The products, the crushed glass. Now that can be used like they're using it as like a base for when they do like road projects,
Right.
and like sidewalk projects, along with geotextiles to prevent like potholes, because what that does is actually lets the water seep down through.
Right.
Right. Is that the type
That's
of
how
thing?
I understand it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Stebbins.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Is it borrow, BARROW, or like burrow?
It's
Borough.
BORROW.
Like a borrow pit.
And last year in the Senate, the Agency of Transportation provided a really good rundown on that issue and that topic. And I know they would be happy to talk to this committee about it. So all that said, glass is a difficult material to manage in MRFs, no doubt about it. It costs money to manage it, and typically the commodity values of other products going out of the MRF is covering the cost of managing the glass. So I just want to make that clear. And we're doing the best we can with it. And I think, we're pretty proud of that work. So those are our facilities. I'll just touch on some of our other work that we do on waste diversion, and that's outreach and education. We have 4 full-time staff members. They go out to the schools. We have Recycle Rhonda, who does classroom presentations. She's absolutely loved and adored by all the school kids that she presents to. We have a person that visits businesses. We have 7,000 businesses in Chittenden County, so that's a big ask, but he tries to get out there and visit as many as possible to help them figure out how to divert as much material, maybe set up sort stations in the front of the house for restaurants, that kind of thing. We give out grants to some of these businesses to help them with that. We also have a full-time community outreach coordinator, and she does things like webinars and tabling at UVM, at other events. So we have a very robust outreach and education program, but Chittenden County is big and there's a lot of work. So we've started really ramping up on social media and working that way. And then, of course, we have policy, which helps tremendously with some of our work in reducing waste and diverting waste. We have our own ordinance where we have had mandatory recycling in place since 1993. We've had pay-as-you-throw in place. We've had a lot of things that Act 148 was actually based upon that we were doing early on. And then we also obviously work on state policy to help further our mission. Producer responsibility laws, Act 148, construction recycling, things of that nature. So that's what I had to talk about in terms of CSWD. I provided a handout to the committee, and I
It's up on the webpage.
okay.
Is it your annual report?
Yeah, our annual report, and mostly I just wanted to point out two things.
If you want to share screen, you're
I
welcome.
can do that if that's helpful for people, so they don't have to look at it. You have it up. Where's the share screen? Oh, I see it. Got it. Okay. So this is the annual report. It's a few pages down, but what I just wanted to point out was two things. One is our funding mechanism. In FY22, we had $16.03 million in revenue, and we have sort of three primary ways that we receive funding. One is a tax on trash, and you heard about that from the state. They have a $6 tax on trash. We have a $27 tax on every ton of trash that's generated in Chittenden County. This is on that pie chart here. So over on the orange slice of the pie, the 21.27% of our funding comes from that trash on tax. Then we have user fees, which is tip fees at the compost facility or the MRF that we're charging haulers for, or the bag trash at our drop-off center. That's 47.25%. And then we have material sales, like the commodities that are sold through the MRF, the recyclables, or Green Mountain compost or local color paint. Those are our materials sales. So those are the three primary ways we're funded. The solid waste management fee, that tax on trash, covers most of our education, outreach, overhead, and hazardous waste program. And then I wanted to just show you, we always like to evaluate. So how are we doing with our mission to divert and reduce solid waste in Chittenden County? And we're doing really well, actually. I like to look at this from the positive side. We diverted 61% of the waste generated last year from Chittenden County, which is a huge number. When you heard Josh Kelly talk about recycling rate, that's kind of what this number is. And keep in mind, recycling rates are, they're really misleading. You're never going to get 100%. Recycling rate is a portion of stuff that gets recycled out of all the stuff that's generated, right? So the highest level you can get for recycling rate is going to be somewhere probably even less. I mean, everything in the world has to be recyclable to get 100% recycling rate, right? So what we like to look at more is what we call recovery rates. And Vermont's really unique because we actually, the state of Vermont does a waste characterization study every 5 years. I think you heard about that. What that means is that they are analyzing what's going into the trash by material. And this is invaluable. I would highly recommend that you have them go through that with you. I have on my screen, but table 11 in the waste characterization study from 2018 will show you over 70 categories of waste that was what was going to the landfill. And you can get an idea of where our problems are at with this waste characterization. And so what we do is we take the waste characterization information, we do our own for Chittenden County. We look at, say, all the blue bin recyclables that we found in the trash. And we extrapolate that against all the blue bin recyclables that were actually recycled. And we come up with the recovery rate. How much of the blue bin recyclables did we recover? We recovered 85%. It's really high. It's great. They're really high numbers. That chart will show you we can be doing a lot better. We have 59,000 tons that is still going to the landfill that could be recycled. Look at the bottom of the trash can on the chart. You see the arrows that go to the different streams where they could be diverted.
Yeah.
So we have our work cut out for us, but I think, we're in the top tier of municipalities diverting waste, and we credit our community a lot to that success. So that's how we're doing. I don't know if you want to get into how the bottle bill interacts with this system, or
Representative Morris, do you have a question?
I do, before we,
Go.
talking about the 59,000 tons or whatever that number is,
Next witness.
the unit of measure.
Okay, you can let her in.
And doing your audits of the blue bins, et cetera, are you able to identify where without naming businesses or anything, can you identify is there a specific industry that's contributing more to the problem or lack of recycling versus another, such as, restaurants or supermarkets or package stores or residential?
yeah, so the waste characterization study is a really good window into what our problems are, but it's not very specific to the generator, right? We're just looking
Right.
at, and so, I know by just glancing at the waste characterization study, we still have a lot of work to do on organics. We could be doing better on textiles. Clean wood waste is actually up around 6 or 7%, but like PET bottles are like 0.1%. I mean, it's a tiny amount. The only time that we get into knowing what industries in particular are problematic is when you look at when our business outreach coordinator goes out and he'll look in dumpsters and then visit the business saying, you know what, you could be doing better and here's how. So it's just kind of like these one-offs, and we obviously don't really share that, make that public, but that's,
HIPAA.
yeah, well, we like him to be able to be welcomed into these businesses. But I think if you look at that waste characterization study, look at that table 11. If you don't want to look at the whole table, the whole study, look at table 11. Look at the percentages of material. And then start thinking about systems like EPR for packaging. There's what we need to do. Like I said before, we need to get away from these single-use products, right? And we need to reduce the amount of material that's put into packaging, or consumers. I know that manufacturers have worked towards lightweighting and all of that, and that's in their best interest. But if you have a eco-modulated fee that incentivizes them not to produce packaging, or to produce very little packaging, or to produce very recyclable packaging, then we start to get at some of those. I think we can prevent more of this material going into landfill. I'll say bulky waste like furniture is another waste stream that's pretty significant, because there's not a lot of like deconstruction and recycling of that material.
Representative Stebbins.
Thanks so much, Chair. I think you mentioned 4 states like Maine, California, Colorado, and I didn't catch the other that actually ban single-use plastics and packaging, or maybe I got Oregon.
They haven't banned them. They have EPR, extended producer responsibility, on all packaging.
With the, okay, so it's the price that, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Are you seeing from that pressure, are you seeing, and you may not know this answer, which is fine, but are you starting to see some market shifts from manufacturers towards, like, are you starting to see like, from the plastics industry a shift in that direction? Of, okay, we can still have a business model here, but it's a different, it's not all new plastic.
It's too early to say with the EPR laws that have passed in the United States. That's none of them have been implemented yet.
Oh, okay.
Europe and other countries have been doing EPR for packaging for years and years and years.
Okay.
And I can't speak to what's happened in those countries, but I do know from some of the conferences that I've gone to that producers are trying to, many producers are trying to figure out ways to make their packaging more sustainable, for sure. And that's reflected with like the demand for PET out of our MRF. I mean, we're getting paid like $222 a ton for plastic water bottles. That's because the beverage manufacturers want post-consumer content. California passed a requirement that a certain amount of the beverage containers had to have post-consumer content. And so they're scrambling to get that post-consumer material. So yeah, I think there's a movement in that direction. And I think a lot of producers see EPR for packaging of some nature writing on the wall, as well as bans on things like styrofoam, et cetera. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last question, then we need to move on. Representative Logan.
Thank you. What can we do about black plastic?
Black plastic is, the problem with black plastic is it's made of it's made up of different types of plastic. So sometimes it's a number 2, sometimes it's number 3, sometimes it's number 5. They put fillers in it. Also, like clay materials for heat resistance, like your rotisserie chickens, so that it doesn't burn your hand. That messes up the recyclability of that material. So I've talked to some of the end markets that take plastic and sell it for it to be used for other materials. And they don't really, unless you can get them one type of black plastic, they can't deal with it. I think, technology eventually may change that, but it's I think when we have our optical sorting system at our new market, perhaps some of that will get detected, but optical sorters have a hard time detecting black plastic, actually,
Okay.
or what type of plastic is black plastic. So I don't know what we can do about black plastic. But make the fee on that type of, that's called a disruptor in the system. They should be paying more because it's society that's about, ultimately paying for that natural resource consumption and waste.
And so many people are confused because there's that symbol on
Yes,
packaging.
yes. But the good news is in our new MRF, we'll be able to, sort through if black plastic is put in there, it will get removed pretty quickly by the equipment.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, committee, we're going to take a